you can get people can come and work with children. They can do lots of activities. It's fun. And they might be drama activities. But I am an educator and a drama fanatic. And I say, okay, but why did you choose that one? And what would have been the difference if you'd chosen that one instead? And what is it these children need? Because that's going to make the difference. And what is it you want them to learn? And the trouble is, if you get people that just flit through after school or just come, and sometimes I go and do something just for a day, obviously. But yes, and I mean, I'm a bit awful because I just say, just get some balloons and call it a birthday party.
Welcome to another fascinating episode of Drama Beyond Performance. Today we are going to talk to Patrice Baldwin, an illuminary in the field of drama education and an advocate for arts in schools. Patrice's innovative approaches have not only encouraged teachers, educators around the world, but also have championed the role of drama in developing life skills such as critical thinking, creative thinking, and empathy. Join us in this conversation as we delve deeper into her philosophy, her experience, and her great passion for drama.
Hi, we are with Patrice Baldwin, and this is Norfolk, yes. And she is one of the most bravest educators that I've known, and we are very lucky at Joy of Drama to be trained also by her in workshops through National Drama, and it's wonderful to meet you in person, Patrice. And you have written your next book, and it will be published in some time. But in general, teaching and learning, where do you see drama, and how have you seen drama help teachers and students across generations for so many years?
Well, I keep saying, and it's really important to me, that the roots of drama are before children ever set foot in a school. So it seems to me that if you're working with children and teaching children, you can't really ignore the way the brain works, but education quite often does. So if you look at what children do naturally, if they're developing normally, then they will create imagined worlds, they will imitate and mimic adults, they will assume responsibilities that they haven't really got but just imagine they have. They'll treat each other in that pretend imagined experience in a way that adults can come in alongside. And they will welcome adults as co-participants and and adults that, particularly teachers, but people who understand children, people who understand drama, will soon start to see possibilities where you don't take away the ownership of it from the children, but you see the learning opportunities. And of course, if you're a teacher, you can plant some, but also children will give them to you. So it's recognising the opportunities when they come and seeing what you can do for it in relation to what the child needs to do in terms of thinking, talk, experience, relationships. I mean, it's so holistic because in a pretend world, you're developing humans. Over years, it depends how, unfortunately, education becomes so political and is often run by economists. And the position of drama in schools changes, and it's almost cyclical in some ways. And there have been times when I've had real hope for what would happen with drama in schools, and then times when it's just dashed, almost by one vote somewhere. However, I think good teachers, whether they call it drama or not, whether they recognise it as drama or not, if they understand children, they'll understand that you get in alongside them and you do some pretend. And I know Dorothy Heathcote did not like the word pretend, but I stick with it because children understand it. We know it's a fiction, we know we're pretending, but emotionally we're engaged with it. We're working socially, we're personally engaged with it, we're practicing real skills, we're using language, we're being challenged in our thinking, and all of that, to me, is the essence of good education and learning. So it makes no sense to tell children to sit still, be quiet, listen, I'll throw a load of knowledge at you, and you can regurgitate it later for a test. That's not education.
But the way you worked, because you worked with the government and you worked with the assessment board, you have been an inspector yourself.
Yeah.
So
Sorry.
when it comes to
Couldn't be helped. Came with the job.
but when it comes to assessment,
Yeah.
where do you see drama facilitating assessment of literacy or numeracy? Or do you see that happening? Do you see drama actually helping children to get better or teachers to get better at
Yeah, it
teaching?
depends what you're seeing by assessment as well, whether you're talking formative assessment,
formative
or whether you're talking summative assessment. Because then it's also interesting because I did once actually very deliberately in one of my books, we had something that came into this country called the SATs, the standard assessment tests or tasks or whatever tests. And I remember taking the papers afterwards. Not before, I hasten to taking the papers afterwards and thinking, okay, I'm going to take these papers and the children aren't even going to know about them. This is old ones, and I'm going to use the same stories and I know what the questions are going to be in this paper and I'm going to create a drama with these children and then I'm going to give it to them. And amazing the difference that you can get, because I don't have a problem with, children have to learn certain things and some things are knowledge-based. But also it's about skills and empathy and a whole much, it's much, much more. And I can remember once saying, you can give me anything you like to teach, but don't tell me how to teach it. So I took the assessments and that's when I wrote Teaching Literacy Through Drama. In fact, in there are some of this, a couple of the units in it are based on government tests. So I don't think it has to be an either or. And what's really important is that people see it as something that helps them with what they're trying to achieve anyway. Not, I haven't got time for that because we're too busy doing this. And what you need to do is to come and say, okay, and actually if you understand this way of working, it might help you to achieve what it is that you're trying to achieve here. Work with me and I'll try and help you achieve it. Because I do think that done well, and you have got to train in drama for learning really, but done well, I think you can achieve extraordinary things through drama for learning, but it does require training and that requires time. And sometimes the sort of education system of the moment or just somebody's personal situation in life or something gives you that time, and sometimes it makes it really difficult to get. And when I started teaching, first of all, I did a degree in English and drama, and then I was in London. And so straight away I thought, right, I remember watching Dorothy Heathcote for the first time on tape. And I talked to her about it afterwards. Years later, I said, I remember the first time I ever saw you do any work, and I told her it, and she told me about it. And it was Dorothy Heathcote at Manresa House or something. And it was a bunch of boys. Black and white film, black boys. And it just hooked me, because I could see there was this woman who was reasonably old, being really serious with these young boys, who were quite feisty young lads. And they were absolutely serious about what they were doing, and she was giving them total serious. They were the ones who understood what was going on. I think they were pig farmers or something. And I thought, there's something here. She's got something here, and I decided to train in it. And it was interesting because when I did my degree, I was given the drama lecturer who was theatre said these are the sorts of papers you've got to do, and one is called Drama in Education. And she said, there's this woman, she's called Dorothy Heathcote. I don't know much about her, but I know you're going to have to find out about that. So I said, oh, thank you very much. And that's when I watched the film and I got hooked. But it meant that when I started teaching in London, there were courses available and they were free in those days. And I just went on them obsessively. And Cecily O'Neill was in London at that point, and Alan Lambert, who she, I think, wrote a book with early on. Alan was there. And he came and taught my class. And it was all there for you. And you could, if you were keen enough, you could just do it. And there was time to do it. And there was the skill there. So I learned a lot because I was just in the right place at the right time.
How difficult is it for a teacher in a school scenario, in a school system, to bring drama into her classroom?
I mean, I think it depends. Schools are changing as well.
Yes, they are.
Schools change, expectations change. We all get there's loads of things that change.
Yes.
I think the head is pivotal. The head teacher. I was a head teacher as well, and when I created School Improvement Drama, which was a national school improvement initiative, which IDEA adopted as an IDEA project actually, and Iceland took on. I don't think you can. It depends whether you're looking at a school or you're looking at one teacher in a classroom. And you have to look at a child passing through a school, and I would want to see a head teacher behind it and understanding it. And often, unfortunately, people who are head teachers are probably maths and English. Not always, and sometimes they're just more broad-minded and into education. But you have to win over an understanding, I think, of what it is that it's offering children and a school. And it also depends how they perceive drama. Because if they just think I'm talking about theatre performance, I mean, that's absolutely valuable. I love it. Yes. Children should do it. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about drama as pedagogy, drama for learning, which, you know, even if you just don't call it drama, if you start working with children and trying to get them to understand something, it's one of the things you resort. Just imagine this. Can we just try this out? It's just taking it to another level, but with a bag full of techniques, isn't it?
Yes.
So.
And the techniques really help. I mean, they have helped us immensely to create structures which lead to a particular objective that we want to, bring in. So when you say about the assessment objectives, and then, building your drama back, I mean, planning it from the objectives, I have done it all my life. Till now I've been just doing that. I look at the assessment objectives and then I plan dramas, which would eventually lead up to that. But without the children knowing that they are being assessed, or there's an assessment or an exam that they have to write or sit for.
It's interesting you say that, because there was a time in this country where you had to share the objectives with the children at the beginning of the lesson before you started. We are going to do this. This is what we're going to get better at. I don't particularly necessarily have a problem with that. It's anyway. I don't. But also, you're right. Depending upon, and you could give me the same resource or the same story or the same idea, and I might be saying, so what do you want the children to learn?
Yes.
Because actually I can take it and do something very different with it, depending upon what you want the learning to be.
Yeah.
So it's where you pay your attention or which techniques you use.
Yes. No, I always believe that having objectives, even if you're doing a drama lesson, having clear objectives always makes your life very simple as a teacher, because you know the technique, you know the objectives, you know the strategies, how to achieve them.
But also, it's interesting because when I first started drama, we didn't have a national curriculum, we didn't have national assessments. We went in, and much more Dorothy style as was, and that's when I started. And I could have spent all week going off to a desert island, which I did. Lovely, had a lovely time. Took all sorts of experts with me, and this was in the 1970s. And I knew everything we did was worthwhile, etc. But then there came the moment where which is, I don't disagree with, you have to get children to learn this. And then the skill is, okay, how do we hold on to that engagement and that ownership of the children whilst knowing, which is what you said, you know your objectives, knowing what it is I need them to do. And as a co-participant in role, I can steer it that way or throw problems in or do things which take it in the direction it needs to go for the learning.
Yes. Because back in India, I mean, most of the theatre practitioners who teach drama, most of them have a very strong theatre background. Like I started with theatre first. I was an actress first. And then I got interested in teaching and learning with children. So we kind of borrow a lot of techniques that we learn in the theatre into the drama lesson, and it can get really, really very fluid, We could just be there and swim in the waters of drama and theatre for at the longest possible time. But then when you're in practice, I've always seen it and felt it rather, that children do need some constructive stepping stones to knowing something. They love learning new things. And that's when, the objective and the technique and the process got me engaged. So
it's interesting because I can remember when I started off in drama, I mean, I did my course as a teacher and everything. And then there I was in a classroom starting, and I thought, where do I get my ideas? And at that time, there was BBC radio drama. And, oh dear, quite funny for lots of, anyway, I loved it. I did it, but I found myself not actually following the thing. I found myself taking the books, getting the ideas and thinking, well, I'll have a go at it myself. And I can remember when I was starting to write lesson plans for teachers, having a conversation with Jonathan Neelands and saying to Jonathan, I'm a bit worried about giving people lesson plans. Because if I start to give lesson plans to people, they're going to start following my lesson plan and missing what the children are giving them sometimes, or where it could go. And he said, and it's still in my mind, he said, Patrice, we all started with somebody else's lesson plan. And that made me think, oh, okay, I'll do it then. And then years later, I actually became a BBC education consultant for the drama programmes. And I did First Steps in Drama and Let's Make a Story and whatever else. But it was interesting because at least children were getting it. Because, I mean, it was wrong if teachers would turn it on and just mark their books while the children did what they did. And I know that Jonathan wrote something which he told me annoyed them, something called like bounce like a ball. But the point Jonathan was making, which I completely get, is, and this is where we have to be careful about I don't know how to put this, but you can get people can come and work with children. They can do lots of activities. It's fun. And they might be drama activities. But I am an educator and a drama fanatic, and I say, okay, but why did you choose that one? And what would have been the difference if you'd chosen that one instead? And what is it these children need? Because that's going to make the difference. And what is it you want them to learn? And the trouble is, if you get people that just flit through after school or just come, and sometimes I go and do something just for a day, obviously. But yes, and I mean, I'm a bit awful because I just say, just get some balloons and call it a birthday party. Because if there isn't a purpose to it, if it's just a load of activities, and that was what was bothering me when I started, which is why in all my drama units and lessons, I always say, this is what the learning is.
Yes, exactly. That's what actually bothered me for the longest time, because I could go on playing with children and they love it. They love it. And they're learning. I know that they're learning. But then it's very important to know what you're teaching, because then I became a better teacher when I knew what I was doing and what my purpose of that particular day was. So, and as you said, you always start with somebody's lesson plans. I started with your lesson plans. I started with some of Dorothy's. I copied her. Literally, I just copied her. And that gave me a lot of insight into what I could do.
See, it's interesting because the drama techniques or strategies or conventions or whatever, them, you can take different lenses to them.
Yes.
So I could just go and do a whole load of stuff, as you said, it's all great fun and everything else, but why am I doing it? But there always must be a reason that I need to know. But I've started looking at them I've done it in articles, and I've touched on it in, I can't remember which book now. But the next book, the book that I just sent off this morning, that book, has got over 40 techniques, and I've got different chapters, and one of them is looking at strategies as thought frames, as thinking frames, looking at strategies as what they offer for talk, looking what happens if you put this one with that one, where does that take the thinking, or where could that take the talk? How would it be if you knew that you wanted children to do a particular type of writing? And you say, you know what you want, so what would be the compelling situation that hooked them, within which I would choose a particular strategy because maybe I wanted them to all voice something in a particular way, talk like a writer or something, because I knew that then they were going to go into the writing, and instead of just sitting at your desk doing a boring exercise, turn to page 73, do writing task number 7, I'm saying if you don't get this letter right, there's going to be a real problem, because we've got to get this letter right, because otherwise the king is going to lock that person up. So come on, there's a lot at stake here. And it's that emotional engagement and the collaborative working together instead of competing. And unfortunately, assessment systems quite often turn children into, I'm a 3A or whatever. You're a human being. Assessment can backfire. I don't have a problem with assessing kids.
No, even I don't see any problem, but how you look at assessment is also, with it.
And how much it does or doesn't narrow the ways in which you teach. Because once you start teaching just for assessment, I think it can get very, very narrow.
Yes.
However, I'm up for, children need to know some stuff. And yes, actually, we need to know whether they're making progress. All of that I don't have a problem with. But it can twist.
Yes, actually, it's about finding that balance between, what you have to teach and what you need to teach, or what the children should learn and what they need to learn, or what they should explore and what they need to explore.
And whether they could be bothered.
Why
would I bother?
Yeah.
And then actually it's about, you hook them emotionally, don't you?
Yes.
And apart from anything else, working with drama for learning, process drama, which is another terminology. Let's just stick to drama for learning for the moment. But one of the things that they're getting from it straight off is social, because the brain is social. Children are social, generally speaking. So if you actually create a school classroom where actually they can't be social, stop talking, sit still, blah-de-blah, which, okay, sometimes you'll have to do things like that. But when they're learning, but they're learning in a way which is collaborative, they're actually being nurtured as a human being at the same time. And so they love it. And when I was a head teacher, I mean, my school was wonderfully quirky and I adored it. But we had things like an imaginary orchestra. If, when the children come into assembly, and actually the first class that would arrive would pick up an imaginary instrument and play it to whatever music was on, and then the next class would come in and the last class would miss that. Anyway, all sorts of little things. And imagination and pretend was just ran through the school and was accepted as part of what we did. But what was interesting was you get a child comes to start from another school and they're thinking, that's a bit unusual, this is a bit odd. But it doesn't take them long before they want to be social and part of it and they get hooked into it. But there are some children, and to be fair, and I just think, I'm not saying do everything through drama, it would take forever and it wouldn't be the most effective way to do everything. But I think it's a really important experience for children to be part of their education and part of a teacher's repertoire. And if you constantly teach in the same ways, you'll constantly advantage the same children and disadvantage the same children. So you do need to try different ways of teaching. And you'll find when you do that some children's face just absolutely lights up and they're hooked in, and they may not be the most academic ones always. And then you'll get other children who may actually be very academic or might just be struggling, but they just don't get it. They just think this is really odd. But or they're very good at imitation and mimicry, and they might be on the spectrum somewhere. It's fascinating. If you watch children working in drama or in dramatic play, you could, I've said to teachers often, if a child's got a difficulty imagining and pretending, they've probably got some learning difficulty. And no one's contradicted me yet. They probably will now. But it's quite telling. It's quite restrictive, isn't it, if you can't let the imagination put yourself in those situations.
Yes, but interestingly, I have had the opportunity to work with children with learning disabilities, and drama has actually helped them a lot, to a great extent, to learn writing, to do writing, to speak, to communicate, to work together,
I'm not disagreeing with that, because what's interesting you say that is that this year I've been working with a special school in Norwich. And it was somebody who was involved in my D4LC project when they were in mainstream school. And in fact, what was interesting when I went there was I suddenly discovered that 2 or 3 of the teachers who have been doing it for a while had left mainstream education to go into special needs teaching. And obviously it's just about being able to, I mean, they're not working with in the same class type context. But they absolutely, you're right, could see that there was something there in terms of learning which was going to be important. But obviously it's about understanding the child, because often it's a one-to-one or a small group, isn't it? But again, it's like if you're an educator, you'll think, well, there's my bag of tools and this is what this child needs. And I'm going to try this one, but I'm going to adapt it because I know they've got this difficulty. So I'm going to change the way that I set this up and see what difference it makes. Oh, that did work. Oh, okay, I think it'd be good if I did this next then. So it's, I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying if you do it with a whole class, in and amongst it, you need to be conscious of the children that just eyes light up, they leap for it, which sometimes can be at a more surface level than the child who isn't coming straight forward. And sometimes you find out years later the impact that a particular lesson has had, or drama as a subject. Because I can remember years ago, I did some work in a school in Norfolk, and the teacher months later gave me a piece of writing a child had done, and it was extraordinary. It was brilliant. It was about the Vikings invading. And it had turned out that the child drew on the drama experience when the teacher had just put a piece of music on. And I wasn't there. It was nothing to do with my drama lesson, but it re-evoked, and the child used from that drama, and it made a big difference to this child's writing. And that was not at the time. That was something afterwards, which is a sort of assessment we often don't catch. So... And also, I told you today, unbelievably, a parent whose child I taught decades ago, I mean, a long time ago, to my total surprise, I knew nothing about this. I got a lovely message today, Facebook Messenger, just saying, I've got to tell you what this child is doing. He's teaching drama as a way of teaching languages. And and she wrote some lovely things. And I just thought that's one of the wonderful things about teaching, isn't it? You never know the impact you're having, and it's on that human level.
Yes, it's a very broad level. Well, some of our students who have been with us for a very long time are now interning with us and intend to become drama teachers. I mean, who would have thought? I didn't know that I would be a drama teacher, you know. It's a very unusual profession. You know, you become a teacher, that's fine. You become a maths or an English teacher or a science teacher, but you don't become a drama teacher. You know, drama teacher is a side hustle that usually theatre artists do. I mean, that's the usual case.
But if you're in primary, you're all of it as well.
That's what you're
so
doing.
It's one of the things, it's one of the ways in which you're teaching whatever it is you have to teach.
Yes.
I'll tell you what was interesting, a bit sad recently, is I did some work for some girls' independent schools. I did a training day for drama specialist teachers in girl independent schools. And as the day went on and we were having a chat at coffee and everything else, I suddenly realised, to my surprise, that within the last year or two, quite a few of them had left the state sector because they couldn't carry on. Their subject wasn't being valued, it was being marginalised, their courses were being got rid of, and so they went where they could teach drama. And just let's hope it comes back for all schools and all children, because as soon as it's not in some schools, that means it's not there for a lot of children. But also, it does need training, it does need teachers to understand it, but you're really talking about understanding learning. I mean, I think Jonathan Neelan's title of his book, Learning Through Imagined Experience, is spot on, actually, as a title. I think that's what we are doing.
Yes.
And as I said, that's what they're doing before they ever came to school. But an empathetic adult alongside them with a learning agenda for the child who recognises the learning opportunities is a very different thing from just playing a load of games.
Yes, it is. And how did parents respond to this kind of teaching in your school? I'm very interested because our work is directly with, parents. We run an after-school program. So we work very closely with parents. And parents understand the importance of drama. We have over 100 children at Joy of Drama. And online and offline. Is it
optional if it's after school?
Yes, it is optional.
Yeah,
it is optional.
Get it into the schools,
Yeah. But we're trying there. I mean, we are trying to get drama a more broader, frame to set in.
Yeah.
But how would parents respond to teaching through drama?
Difficult to say, really, because I was a head teacher. It's just how we did it. Not everything, I hasten to add.
Yeah.
No, it's just part of what we did. I mean, it's probably going to depend on the parent. I mean, to be fair, I think I hear from the ones who love it or could see the point of it. I mean, I suppose it depends what response your child has to it as to what the parent's response to it is. It's quite interesting that you say that, because normally I'm working in other people's schools now and doing demonstration lessons or doing some sustained work. I don't meet the parents anymore. But having said that, I got an email, I got a message this morning from one, didn't I, from decades ago. So I do occasionally meet parents, and they do say things that are really quite positive, and they remember. Because if they see it in their children, if they see their children loving something, then that in itself is going to warm the heart of a lot of parents, isn't it? But it has to, and again, Fred, this is the inspector head now, or the school improvement head. If it's in school time, we have to be realistic.
Yes.
And this is the real challenge, because there's no point in us going back to the 1970s and wafting about, even though we did some lovely things and they learned a lot, because we could all go off in different directions. And what happens, and we have got, like it or not, a national curriculum, although I'm not sure if academies have to follow it, but never mind, whatever. But the point is, there are things that we accept that children need to learn and hoops they've got to jump through it and everything else. And I think, okay, that's how it is. But I don't want to be told how to do it. I mean, I don't mind finding ways of doing it. I want to do what works for those children. And what works for those children there might be a little bit different from what's going to work for those children there. I'm getting concerned about delivery via the internet of lessons. I don't mind during a pandemic, because that was a help. I am a bit concerned about where it could theoretically end up, because I don't know if you know, we've now got... I helped them during the pandemic. I worked with the Oak National Academy during the pandemic as their primary subject lead, and I was absolutely up for doing that. That's fine. And now they're in a different position, and I'm not quite sure what they're doing. But drama's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's social. So you can do a certain amount, and it's all very worthwhile. But really, I want to get, it's like when I know you've attended some of my online training, and that's fine, I can do online training and you can get quite a bit from it. But I know that the real getting it is when you manage to get into the same space and you can see what each other are doing, you're sensing all the non-verbal communication and everything. And screens don't work terribly well for it. So
very interesting, because we have been working online with children and children who are very young, like from 5 to I think 16, 17, that's the range of, age range that we work with. And 50% of our students at Joy of Drama are coming online. And we have parents, because we work with parents again, we get to hear directly from them about what the drama lessons have done for their children during pandemic, post-pandemic, and they continue to send their children for our lessons.
when you do that, are they interconnecting with each other online?
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, just depends how you do what you do.
Yes,
But and I'm not saying there's no value in it, because one of the things that's been brilliant about online, and when I do online training, well, I mean, you probably were in India when suddenly internationally you've got people from all over the world. And Australia's saying, can you do one for us? Because we've had to get up at 3:30 in the morning. Can you change it? Because obviously you have time zones to consider. But there is some value in all of that. But I'm just saying I wouldn't want it to become that's the main way it will happen, because I think that's quite restrictive in terms of what you can do with drama.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Then
And
it goes beyond drama, I would say. I mean, drama is just a part of it, but we are able to look at many other things which go beyond just drama. We have, put our foot into a little bit of filmmaking, a little bit of, stop motion storytelling, different formats of storytelling, just because we had that, 2 years. India had a very long lockdown, so children were not able to go to school for 2 years.
Yeah.
So we used that 2 years' time to build so many different ways of storytelling. Till today, we produce online plays and parents come to watch it. And they see the difference in their children after the play is done. And then once they see that, okay, they have benefited through the online, then they send them offline for our
you're right.
sessions.
It could be. I mean, as I say, if it was only ever online, then it could be of great value. But what's lovely from what you've just said is that also some of them then get it offline.
Yes,
so I just think it's about a universe that's bothering me more than a particular. It's more about that I spent too long on screen recently.
On that note, I think we should look at your books now.
Oh, I can't find the latest one. I've lost it. I have to buy my own book. I just had to do that recently. I lost one. I've left it somewhere. I've had to buy one of my books recently. I just want the royalties back. I always feel annoyed if I have to buy one of my own books.
Let's go.